Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the top. The Gemara had previously explained, based on Psukim, that when a person is koine shvisa, he has 2,000 amos. Now says the Gemara, Omer Rabbi Bar Chamo, Harei Omru Shovas Yesh Lo Daled Amos. Rabbi Bar Chama says that the sages had taught us that in addition to the place where he is situated, he has 4 amos, and then 2,000 amos, a total of 2,004 amos. That's when he's kind of shvisa baraglov in the place where he is situated. Hanoisin es eruvoy yesh lo daled amos oiloi. Asked Rabbi Bar Chama, when a person sends somebody else as a shaliach to then place pass for his shvisas mokom, to be kind of shvisa, does he also have an additional daled amos? In other words, when that shliach puts down the pas, is he koine daled amos, and then he has another 2,000 amos, or not? Omar Rave said, Toshma, let's bring a proof from our Mishnah. Lo yomru ma'arvin bepas elo lohokil. Our Mishnah states that when a oshir, somebody who is present in his own home, in order to give him a kula, certain dispensation, we allow him to send somebody to place pas and make a knias and be kind of shvisa on his behalf as a kula. V'i amris ein loy, if you're going to say that he does not have an additional daled amos, hai lohakil lahachmirhu. This is not lahakil, this is lahachmir. This is being stringent on him because he's limited to 2,000 amos. He's missing 4 amos. Answers the Gemara, you have no proof from our Mishnah because afilu hachi neichale ki heichdel nitrach v'neipuk. It's still considered to be a kula because after all, we don't require that he leaves his place. He's allowed this dispensation to send somebody else and then place down the bread to be kind of shvisa. So that itself is a kula. The Mishnah goes on to say it, that when a person wants to be kind of shvisa in a mokom acher, says the Gemara, we said earlier that an ani, somebody who's a traveler, can do so. A person who goes out to the city, which is going to be towards a place 4,000 amos, in order to make an eruv on his behalf, on behalf also of the city, and his friend, he convinces him to come back. He says, for example, as the Gemara will explain, that it's cold outside, the weather doesn't permit, come back. Hu mutar leilech v'chol b'nei ha'ir asuri. The Mishnah states, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that he is permitted to go, that means to use this eruv, whereas the people of the city cannot. Di Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara will explain the rationale for Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir Oimer. Rabbi Meir is cholik, and he says, no. Kol shehu yochel la'arev v'lo eirav, hareze chamar gamal. If a person could have made an eruv and he did not do so, then he has the status of chamar gamal, which means to say, perhaps he was kind of shvisa 2,000 amos away, as he intended to do so, and perhaps not. Perhaps he was kind of shvisa only in the makom where he is situated. And therefore we can say he can only have this shared makom, because if he was kind of shvisa in the makom where he originally attended to, 2,000 amos away, then on that side, he would not be able to then go back even 1 amma. On the other hand, if he was kind of shvisa in the makom where he is situated, he can only go down 2,000 amos before him and 2,000 amos behind him. So their chamar gamal means that therefore he can only have the shared area, the 2,000 amos between him and the original place and the place that he wants to make shvisa. Just like somebody who's a donkey driver and a camel driver, that means he has a donkey who normally then pushes before him, and he has a camel who he leads from behind. In other words, he's in between them. He's in front of the camel and behind the donkey, whereby it's a shared area. So too over here we're saying he can't go behind him even 1 amma, and he can't go beyond 2,000 amos in front of him. He only is limited to the 2,000 amos between him and the place that he wanted to make shvisa. Ask the Gemara, Maishna ihu umaishna inhu. According to Rabbi Yehuda, in our Mishnah, we said that the person who went out, he indeed, although he came back, he was convinced to come back, he can go ahead and use that Erev Techumim, but the people of his city cannot. What's the distinction? Why can he use it and they cannot? We're talking about a case where there is two houses. He has a house in this city. He also has a house in a city 4,000 amos away. That person, the Mishnah goes on to say, since he went out on the road, in other words, he began to then intend to make that Shvisa 2,000 amos away. So then we say he's like an ani, he's like a traveler. And therefore he can go ahead and make Shvisa b'mokom acher. V'hani ashirininu, whereas the people of the city are ashirim. They are situated in their own hometown, and therefore they don't have the dispensation to make a Shvisa b'mokom acher. Says the Gemara, we have a brisa also like Rav Huna. Tanya nami hochi. We have a brisa to say that also a person has two houses with 4,000 amos in between. Misha yesh lo shnei batim ubeineim shnei tuchumei Shabbos. Again, he has a house in this city where he's located now, but he has a house also in another city 4,000 amos away. Kivan shehichzik baderech. Since he began his travel, he began on the road. Kana eruv divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says he was kaina the eruv, and therefore, like our Rav Huna has explained, that's why he is going to then have the dispensation, because since he's on the road, it's like he's an ani, he's a traveler who has this kula. Yes, sir. Al Kain, the Brisa going to say, moreover, Omar Rabbi Yosi Bar Yehuda, Afilu Matzu Chaveiroi va'Omar Lo. Even if his friend had found him and said to him, "Lean po, spend the night here." Eis chamahu, eis tzinahu. It's a time where it's hot outside. It's a time where it's cold. Lo machar mashkim v'hoylech. Nonetheless, the next day he can get up and go and use that tchumin. In other words, we say that he was not somebody who then changed his mind. We say that it was an established situation where he went to do his intended techum, only he came back. Now the Gemara explains exactly the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda in our brisa. Omar Rabbi, loymar, to make the declaration that he wants to be establishing a shvisa in a mokom acher, 2,000 amos away, kuli amo loy pligi ditzarech. Everybody agrees that he must do that. He must make the declaration. Ki pligi lahachzi. The machlokes in this brisa between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda is, do we consider to be lahachzik? Is that necessary that he is considered to be somebody who has established a place on the road already? In other words, he already began his journey. Rav Yosef Omar lahachzik. I'm sorry, and therefore to explain the machlokes, that means that Rabbi Yehuda requires that he's machzik baderech, and Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says he doesn't have to be machzik baderech, even if he never even went out. He was just declaring, that's enough, according to Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Yosef explains the machlokes differently than Rabbah. Lahachzik de kuli amalot. Everybody agrees, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda, that you do not need, that you need to be machzik baderech. That means you need to go out to start his journey, so to speak. That was necessary, that he actually started going out. Ki pligi loymar. The machlokes in Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda is if you need to make a declaration. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he does need to make a declaration that he's going to then be kind of shvisa 2,000 amos away. According to Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda, he does not. Says the Gemara, Kaman az lahoda Omar Ula. Like, which one of these two explanation goes like the statement of Rabbi Ula, Misha hichzik baderech ve'chziu chavero. Rabbi Ula says, somebody who is machzik baderech, and his friend calls him back, Harehu muchzar umuchzak. He's considered to be returned and established on the road. Ask the Gemara, that's a stira minehu bey. It's an internal contradiction. Im muchzar lama muchzak. V'im muchzak lama muchzar. If he is somebody who's considered to be returned, then he's not established on the road. And if he's considered to be established on the road, certainly he's not somebody who's returned. So what does it mean that when Ula said these words, hu muchzar muchzak? Hochikam, and this is what Ula meant. Afal pisha muchzar muchzak. Even though he's returned, but he is muchzak. Ask the Gemara, Kiman, like who does this statement follow? Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef alib Rav Yossi bar Yehuda. Like the way Rav Yosef explains Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda. He explained it to be that he requires him to be muchzak, but does not require that he make the declaration. That's what Ula also meant when he said that he is muchzar muchzak. He's going to be returned, but he's established. In other words, he already established his way. And therefore, that's enough to say that he did not retract in his intention to make the shvisa b'mokom acher. And he's kind of the shvisa. The Gemara now brings the following Maisa, Rabbi Yehuda bar Ishisa. I see like kalkala de peiler Rav Lesin bar Oshaya. Rabbi Yehuda bar Ishisa went on an Erev Shabbos to bring a basket of fruit to Rabbi Lesin bar Oshaya. Kihava Ozil, when he was now on Erev Shabbos ready to return back to his house 4,000 amos away, Shavke Adenochis Darga. Rabbi Lesin bar Oshaya waited until he first took a step towards his house. In other words, on his return journey. And then, Omar, he said to him, Bayis Hocha, spend the night over here. Lo Machar Kodim V'Ozil, tomorrow, the next day, on Shabbos morning, you're able to then go ahead and use the Tchum. Says the Gemara Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis on the top, Kiman, like who does Rav Lesin bar Oshaya go like? Ki Rav Yosef, Valid Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. Like Rav Yosef explained in the way of Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, that is, that as long as he's muchzak, even though he did not make a declaration, that's going to be sufficient to make it so that he's kind of the shvisa. The Gemara says you have no proof that this is like Rav Yosef's explanation, Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. Loi kirabo va'alid the Rabbi Yehuda. This is like Rabba's explanation of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabba's explanation of Rabbi Yehuda was that a declaration was made, but he was also muchzak. So therefore, perhaps over here, Rabbi Lesin bar Oshaya had him make a declaration, and he also had him to be muchzak on derech. So therefore, this could even be the way Rabba explains Rabbi Yehuda.